So Bill Gates has shared his infinite wisdom again, affirming, and I'm not making this up, that planting trees to curb the effects of climate change is nonsense. But it's better if you watch it for yourself. Just make sure to pay attention to his body language as well as his words.
Are you offsetting your own personal emissions with that? And can you give us a sense of the scale of that?
It's like 10 million a year.
Okay. And just
it's a variety of things. Buying electric heat pumps for low-income housing where they get the benefits of lower monthly bills, and I take the carbon credits for those things. There's solar panels. There's a huge variety of things. I don't use some of the less proven approaches.
Such as?
I don't plant trees.
There's a lot of people who are very enamored with trees. We've got trees on this stage. Some people would even say that if you just planted enough trees, it could take care of the climate issue altogether.
And that's complete nonsense.
Okay.
Are we the science people or are we the idiots? Which one do we want to be?
Well, hands down, the most triggering thing is how he says, are we the science people or are we the idiots? That is our first step, because regardless if he is right or not, and we're going to talk about trees in a minute, that blank statement makes sure to create a blunt polarization in a dismissive way. As in, I am with science, everyone else is an idiot. And I don't think any real scientist from history has ever thought that way. In fact, proving yourself wrong is equally as important as proving yourself right. So, right out of the gate, pun intended, Gates is almost proud of being part of the science people and dismiss everyone else as idiots. Now, for any body language or statement analysis, context is important. And maybe the word idiot was aimed at someone in particular. And in this case, that person could be billionaire Mark Benioff, Salesforce CEO, who had this initiative of either planting or protecting 1 trillion trees. A very big number, considering the current estimated amount of trees in the planet is more or less 1 trillion trees. So these two billionaires have been arguing about the matter. One can imagine them yelling to each other, sitting on their own super yachts, which would be quite funny. But you know that they're all for having net zero, in the sense that no matter how much Bill Gates travels with his private jet, as long as he invests in technology that saves and prevents the equivalent in carbon emissions, then everything is okay, right? Not gonna lie, that logic has always rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe I'm wrong, but it's like someone thought he had the right of dumping a ton of dirt on the street as long as he pays for the cleaning of the same amount of dirt from the rest of the city. I know, it's a bit odd, but I am not a billionaire, so maybe that's why I don't understand billionaire logic. And regarding that carbon-reducing technology, it's relevant that Bill Gates mentioned solar panels, and yes, as you would expect, he's got some kind of interest on that. To be fair, he has invested in many other technologies, including nuclear, which I am a fan of, but it's worth noting that he prefers to pick solar panels as his go-to carbon-reducing technology. It's how he labels himself part of the science people and everyone else idiots. And now, you know that I like to be thorough with my videos, and it's not only about body language and statement analysis, but I really wanted to know why Bill Gates was so adamant in claiming that trying to curb climate change, planting trees, was nonsense. And it was not that hard to find enough information to confirm that this is true and false at the same time. Let me explain. It's obvious that we are talking about carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, the two main emissions that we should curb, for many reasons, especially from a health perspective. Do trees have that ability? Yes, that's what we could call settled science. In fact, there is a phenomenon in which the Earth's carbon dioxide levels would naturally trigger a greenery expansion in the world. It makes sense, right? The more CO2, the more plants and trees can breathe and produce oxygen. So far, so good. But at our current generation of carbon emissions, the amount of trees needed to achieve net zero will be more or less the entire territory of the United States, all trees back to back to be able to do it. And that's the problem, because even if you try to distribute that evenly all over the world, there's just not enough space. So, could we use trees to curb carbon emissions? In theory, yes, but in practical terms, it's not possible. There's simply not enough space on the planet. So the other two options are to reduce the emissions or find ways to capture those emissions before they are released into the atmosphere. Well, in regards to reducing the emissions, you know that some countries are just laughing in the face of that, so forget it. Reducing emissions would come from investing more on nuclear energy, and even Elon Musk wants to touch nuclear energy given all the politics and paperwork involved. But now, does this really mean that planting trees is nonsense? Well, no. It's also a general consensus that planting trees and vegetation helps reduce heat and help as cooling factors. And whatever contributes as a cooling factor, in turn, helps reduce the amount of energy consumption. Maybe one tree doesn't help in a significant way, but when you think about millions or even billions of trees, that could make a difference. So I would say that it's far from being nonsensical. But this is the kind of things that can help you make sense of someone's true intentions or their true character, or if they want to look smart or even trigger you into a response. And this is why you know that Bill Gates wanted to say that planting trees was nonsense. When he's asked about what is he doing to be net zero himself, he adds at the end, "I don't use some of the less proven approaches," and then shuts up. You notice that when he says it, he has this smug attitude, raising his chin in arrogance and even making air quotes as he speaks. He does this because that's baiting the interviewer into asking, well, okay, what are those less proven approaches? And then Gates does this thing, which is pretending to think about the answer. He already knew that he was going to answer trees planting. He wanted it. He's just taking the time just so it looks like the answer that he's giving is natural. Also, he only mentions planting trees. And I'm sure that, according to Gates himself, there must be other approaches that are less proven. But he only mentions this one. He could have mentioned 2 or 3 of them, but he didn't. As I said, he's making sure that the topic of what he's doing about his own carbon emissions, which is a personal question, leads him into calling anyone that considers tree planting an idiot. And that's why he makes that blanket statement and black and white distinction between science people and idiots. So you see that even the discussion of something that Gates pretends is important to him, all the climate change, all the carbon emissions capturing, even that discussion serves the purpose of hitting at someone who thinks different than him. It's puerile at best. Regarding his body language, one of the few tells that we can see throughout the whole clip is his right foot constantly tapping on the floor. I don't see much change on this, so I usually discard signals that don't give additional information as they don't change after a question has been asked. Much more important is the science people versus idiots gesture, in which he makes sure to signal with both hands towards his chest to reassure that he is part of the science people. So, this is one of those instances in which it's not as important what the person is saying, but how they say it, but more relevant is why would they speak and act in such a way. And that's why sometimes you just don't have enough body language clues to say, hey, this person is a jerk. But I don't know exactly why I feel this way. Maybe I'm being unfair to them. Maybe I am biased. But no, it has to do with our BS detector that is working all the time and we should listen to it. So in this case of Bill Gates and his opinion about planting trees, he knows that such a generalized statement is going to stir a controversy, and he wants that opportunity to brag about how he's part of the science people and everyone else is just an idiot. But now, you know better. I would love to know what you think about this in the comments. Don't forget to download my free 100 body language tips in the description of this video. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. Much love and bliss.